Hey, Catherine. Pardon my not showing my face in this one. I have a pretty bad cold, if you can tell from my voice, and it's been a rough week, as you know. So, I'm going to be talking about the time a Snickers bar saved my life. It was the first Monday of the week of classes here. And I know because I had only been here somewhere between like 8 and 10 days. And I was so excited to have my first paleontology class. And I felt fine when I woke up in the morning. I felt fine on my way to class because my lecture was at 1 in the afternoon. I got there early and the lecture was great, and we had lab afterward. And something wasn't quite right. I noticed in the middle of lecture that I was like sweating bullets and suddenly like vaguely kind of nauseous. So I was drinking some water, but it wasn't helping. And then on the way walking between lecture and lab, I was getting like really gassy, and I could tell something wasn't quite right. I made it through about the first 10 minutes of lab before I needed to run to the bathroom. And then I came back and was back for about 5 minutes before I was back in the bathroom for another about 20. And at this point, I know I'm very sick. So I texted one of my friends who is taking care of me a lot when I've been sick. And I texted my mom and I was like, yo, this is what's up. What should I do about it? Both of them were like, okay, as long as you don't have a fever, you're probably okay. You probably just ate something bad. You know, maybe you got a wrong date or aren't used to the water yet or ate something expired. You're probably fine. And so I don't worry about it. But I keep trying to go back to class. I keep only making it about 10 minutes before I have to go back to the bathroom and just like essentially blow it up, vomit, and yeah. And after the fourth cycle of that, I went back to lab, and they were like the postdocs who were helping teach it, and the professor came up to me and were like, Kara, I think you should go home. Like, I know you want to be here, but this is kind of just an intro day, so it's okay if you miss it, and you don't look so good. So I'm like, okay. I pack up my stuff, and I'm like on my way out, and I catch myself in the mirror on the bathroom wall, like as I used it one last time before leaving, and I look like a ghost. That was a weird half cough, half laugh. So I leave the building, and I didn't feel good enough to walk home. And the King's buildings are quite a walk from where I live, so at that point in time, I didn't yet have a bus pass. So I took an Uber home, and I get back home, and I think, all right, I'm still a little bit sick, so why don't I just take it easy? I'll sit in bed, I'll get ahead on the reading if I can, drink a lot of water, start to feel better. But I just keep getting worse, and no matter what I eat, no matter what I drink, I couldn't keep it down. Kept getting hotter, started to feel dizzy, couldn't even really keep water, and I eventually had to call the RA for help because I knew I was very sick and needed some kind of medical attention. And at this point, it's only like 6 p.m., by the way. So this all happened in the span of like 4 or 5 hours. So they come, they look at me, they're like, yeah, this doesn't sound too good. So they call the NHS phone line, and we kind of like asked them some questions, answered some of their questions. And essentially the long and the short of it was like, yeah, you need to come in. So at that point I call my mom to tell her what's up. She's super worried. And I go in. Get there, And the wait before I got seen, I don't fully remember, was somewhere between 3 and 5 hours. And during this time, I became so weak that I couldn't stand or move. So they ended up putting me in a wheelchair just to get me to the hospital. And I couldn't keep down any more than like 2 mouthfuls of water at a time. So I got so dehydrated that I was just completely delirious and was in and out of being passed out in the waiting room of the ER. And eventually what happened was I kind of like came to for a second and was like, I need water. So I begged the guy next to me who was sitting there, who got me a water bottle from the vending machine. And I chugged it and then immediately threw it up because you shouldn't chug things when you can't hold anything down. So, tried again, um, with another water bottle, like sipping it, like at the rate of a sip every 10 minutes. And I tried talking to people to distract me, like I was trying to use my phone. So I was texting my mom, and I was texting some of my friends at Colby and the person who I was dating at the time. And that worked pretty well. I got like half of a water bottle into my body, and I was way more aware from then on after, which is why I remember like the last half an hour of the time being in the ER before I got seen, but nothing really before that because it was all just a delirious, dehydrated blur. So there's people in the hallway. I'm sorry. Uh, they take me in and they asked me like some questions, took my vitals, all that, and they're like, okay, it seems like you have gastroenteritis, and it's pretty bad. And where I was apparently like they checked my blood levels at the point in dehydration. I forget what number it was, but you can die from being dehydrated somewhere around like 15% and a little bit below that. And I was either 8 or 10% of my body water had been lost. So I was in the danger range. And that was after I had half of a water bottle. So they were like, okay, we need to hook you up to an IV. And I was very reticent to let them prick me to take my blood at all. But at that point in time, I was so sick that I didn't really care. I was like, just take my arm, do whatever you want. So I get hooked up to this IV and lay there on it for like half an hour, 45 minutes. And then when I pop off the IV, I feel like a whole new Kara. Like I have electrolytes now, I've got sugars and water again, and they put me on like an anti-vomiting medication. That way they could feed me. And they were like, okay, so we don't know how long the effects of the like anti-vomiting thing will last, so we're going to give you pills to take home with you to make sure you don't get nauseous so that you can keep eating. And in the meantime, while we've been able to give you this stronger intravenous dose, we are going to give you a high protein, high sugar, high salt thing to eat because it might be the only thing you'll be able to eat for a couple of days. And I'm like, okay. And they fucking hand me a Snickers bar. And I'm wilding because I'm thinking to myself that I was going to get this, like, you know, the things they give, like, people when they're recovering from starvation or something. But no, I get a Snickers bar. And I just remember sitting there for a second, dumbfounded, when they handed it to me. And then I open it and take a bite, and it was like the best thing I had ever tasted. It was when you haven't been able to eat or drink anything for, at that point, more than 24 hours. it was just phenomenal. So, ever since then, I've never really been able to see the Snickers bar the same way, because for like the following 2 days, I couldn't really hold any food down like they had predicted. So I functionally lived off of a Snickers bar for like 3 days, just a singular one. And somehow I made it through. I still have like a little bit of a problem with my upper arm on my left side where they did the IV. Something went a little funky there. But, I mean, aside from that, I can't really complain. I'm just lucky to have not croaked from a horrible infectious illness. So yeah, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for listening to my crazy story. I'm glad to be here.